Every year, the Volkswagen Group is a top contender for the title of world's largest automaker. The group owns not only the Volkswagen brand for which it is named, but 11 other brands hailing from 7 European countries. The group sells cars, commercial vehicles, and even motorcycles. It operates 133 manufacturing plants around the world and sells cars in 153 countries. Now, this behemoth is trying to forge a new future for itself by going electric, just years after its executives perpetrated what might be one of the worst examples of corporate malfeasance in automotive history.
The American people, the EPA, and their counterparts around the world have been defrauded by Volkswagen.
Opinions are divided as to how wise Volkswagen's bet on electric is, given that electric cars represent only a tiny share of the global car market and face massive infrastructural challenges. However, its sheer size and presence across such a broad range of vehicles do suggest that if any traditional automaker has a shot at going all in on electric, Volkswagen is it. Volkswagen's origins can be traced to the engineer Ferdinand Porsche. He spearheaded the creation of what may still be the company's most iconic car, the Type 1, better known to the world as the Volkswagen Beetle. Of course, this legendary car had a dark beginning. It was created at the behest of Adolf Hitler, who wanted an affordable vehicle that could encourage the widespread adoption of cars in Germany as Hitler sought to build the fascist utopia he had imagined. In the years following World War II, the company rebuilt itself and began exporting its Beetle, first to the rest of Europe and eventually around the world.
In 1959, 700,000 Americans buy foreign cars in this 1 year.
The car became one of the best-selling vehicles of all time, with one of the longest production runs in automotive history. It also became an icon, beloved by a wide range of buyers around the world. Some customers, particularly in America, appreciated the car's engineering, relatively small size, and superior efficiency to the large sedans Detroit automakers were churning out in the post-war period. But in the 1970s, the Beetle began to face tougher competition from cars with new designs that offered more interior room and trunk space. The Beetle also struggled to meet emerging fuel economy and safety standards taking hold in the US. So in the mid-1970s, VW began introducing new vehicles, some of which it continues to sell today. Two notable examples are the Passat sedan and the Golf compact hatchback. The Golf, initially sold as the Rabbit in the US, went on to be another extremely popular car for Volkswagen. The automaker has sold more than 35 million Golfs since 1974, which Volkswagen notes works out to one Golf sold every 41 seconds. For the 1976 model year, the automaker released a version of the Golf called the GTI, which became something of a legend in its own right. The GTI is commonly thought of as one of the world's first so-called hot hatches, and is often credited with creating the category that now includes countless competitors. Here was a small economical car with a powerful engine that became popular with enthusiasts and in racing. Increasingly faced with competition from low-priced and highly reliable cars from Japanese manufacturers, the Volkswagen brand distinguished itself as a relatively affordable brand with a German pedigree and technical excellence. But over time, Volkswagen went from being a brand to an automotive empire. The company now owns a large stable of names that operate in markets all over the world and sell cars at every price point, from the very low end to almost unbelievably expensive supercars costing several $1,000,000. Some brands, such as Porsche, were developed by Volkswagen or by members of its founding Porsche and Piëch families. Many others were acquired, such as Audi, Lamborghini, Bugatti, and Bentley. Key to managing such a vast and diverse empire has been Volkswagen's ability to design very flexible platforms that can be used across such a wide range of vehicles.
What's happened in the more recent years that's really contributed to their not just growth but their cost effectiveness is these new platforms, these global platforms that they've created, where they can build so many vehicles, not just for one or two, but for many of their brands off of a starting point that's the exact same between the front wheel hub and about where the dashboard or firewall is of the vehicle.
The company delivered 10.83 million vehicles around the world in 2018, including heavy commercial trucks. That makes it the biggest seller of light and heavy vehicles combined. By comparison, the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance sold 10.76 million, and Toyota Motor sold 10.59 million. Volkswagen has been especially successful in China, the world's largest auto market. It had about 13% of the Chinese market in 2018 and sold more units than any other automaker, including Honda, Toyota, and the Chinese company Geely. But the United States has often been a weaker market for Volkswagen.
Part of the reason why they haven't been as strong in the US is they haven't really penetrated the pickup truck segment. They've looked at notable examples from Japanese OEMs who have tried and failed. Also, VW Group is really strong on the coasts. They aren't really in the heartland of the US.
In 2018, Volkswagen's share of the global car market was 12.3%, but the company had 3.7% of the US market. That's not just for the Volkswagen brand either. It includes Porsche, Audi, and everything else. Frustrated with its small share in the country, Volkswagen said in 2007 it was stepping up its efforts and planned to sell 800,000 vehicles a year in the US by 2018. But it fell far short of that goal. In 2018, the company sold just 354,064 units in the US. Now, the automaker is pushing more heavily into sport utility vehicles, which stand to improve its fortunes in the United States if current trends continue. But the company's history has been a story of wild swings between popularity and obscurity.
Volkswagen's fascinating because they've had this kind of ongoing cycle in the US where they do really well and they're kind of dominant, like with the Beetle, and then they start shrinking in market share and they're having trouble competing, and it looks like maybe they're even going to leave the market entirely. And then they decide to recommit and they come back in and they go all in on the US, and then they kind of build the brand again and it starts to accelerate. And then they kind of have another contraction. I mean, that's what happened with the Dieselgate issue, 5-6 years ago. It's never dull with Volkswagen. They've definitely not had a consistent experience in the US market over the last 50 years.
Volkswagen did distinguish itself in the US market by being one of the only automakers to commit to passenger cars that run on diesel fuel. Historically, diesel has been far more common in Europe, where it was long supported by government incentives. But light vehicles that run on diesel are unusual in the United States. Diesel powertrains have long been considered more fuel efficient than their gasoline counterparts, and Volkswagen marketed its diesel engines as a smarter, economical, and environmental choice. But its promotion of diesel eventually blew up in the company's face and led to the greatest scandal in Volkswagen's history. In 2015, revelations began to surface that Volkswagen had devised technology to cheat on US fuel emissions tests. The company had installed devices that were designed to detect when the cars were being tested for fuel efficiency and alter the engine's performance. During tests, the engine would be tuned to boost fuel economy and meet US government standards. But in real-world conditions, the engine would revert to its default setting, which sacrificed the required fuel economy for better performance. Volkswagen pleaded guilty to charges of fraud in the United States and had to pay out more than $30 billion in fines and other costs.
Volkswagen has admitted guilt to federal criminal charges, and that includes charges of obstruction of justice, and is paying a $4.3 billion fine in the emissions cheating scandals.
Top executives resigned, including CEO Martin Winterkorn, who stepped down in September of 2015. The company is still reeling from the fallout. Winterkorn and 4 other top Volkswagen executives were charged with fraud in Germany in April of 2019. But industry observers say that some good has come out of the scandal for Volkswagen. The sheer financial burden of the ordeal forced the automaker to cut costs and streamline its manufacturing and operations, which ended up improving profitability. It also pushed the company to more fully embrace the growing movement toward electrification, something Volkswagen was less eager to do earlier when it was so invested in diesel. It also spurred the creation of the Electrify America project, which is investing $2 billion in electric vehicle charging infrastructure and other programs across the United States. In addition, it led Volkswagen to throw its weight behind electric cars, which many in the industry say improves the chances for electric cars to gain more traction overall in the automotive market. The company said in 2019 that it plans to sell 22 million electric vehicles by 2030. It has already been showing off high-profile examples of its electric future. The ID. Cross is a crossover vehicle Volkswagen will manufacture in 2022. Also expected in 2022 is a production version of the ID. Buzz concept, a reworking of VW's classic bus with an electric motor. Porsche is also getting into the act. The Porsche Taycan is an electric sports car the company is unveiling in 2019. As of July, Porsche said it had already more than 30,000 reservations for the car, and the company doubled its first-year production target from 20,000 cars to 40,000. The Taycan is regarded as a potentially powerful challenger to Tesla's performance-oriented electric cars, which have dominated the high-end electric car market. Getting an automaker as massive and varied as the Volkswagen Group behind electric cars could provide the catalyst needed to make them truly mainstream alternatives to gasoline vehicles. Still, many in the industry express skepticism that most customers are as ready to go electric as some automakers are.
A lot of investors and the street is somewhat negative on this, especially in Europe. They believe there are going to be fines, CO2-related fines that VW is going to have to pay. They're not sure of the consumer demand for EVs, and they think that they're going to have to sell these EVs at a loss.
Time will tell whether the bet secures Volkswagen's future. But if it works out, the German automaker's worst scandal could be remembered as the ordeal that made VW even more powerful.